Yo, it's Mike, and due to very popular demand, by very popular demand I mean one single human being asking me this, thank you Caleb, we're going to talk about my favorite films. Let's get into it. Go. Alright, so as I speak, these dramatic slashes of light passing onto me through my blinds, we're going to be covering black and white and color film. Now, I need to say, I shoot exclusively with Kodak films, so, I'm going to be a little bit biased. But hopefully we'll be able to cover the spectrum. We'll start with black and white, because that's a good starting point for every photographer looking to get into film. I shoot black and white with Tri-X 400, legendary black and white film. I don't shoot as much black and white as I probably should. I prefer color film, I prefer color photography in general more to black and white. I think it adds a greater depth to it. I made a video on it, I'll link it somewhere. But when people think of classic black and white film photography, it's Tri-X. I know people are gonna be saying Ilford is the way to go. Oh, Ilford, so British. But there's something about Tri-X that just seems more natural to me. I mean, if we look at Ilford, I started out with Ilford 400 HP 5, and it's contrasty, maybe not as much definition as I'd hoped there would be, but the grain pattern more than anything, it almost looks splotchy, and so with that, you kind of just get poorly defined features in whatever photo you're taking, and so I moved to Tri-X 400 and haven't looked back since, and I'm hoping I'll be able to get into more black and white film photography. I'm kind of realizing black and white's punchiness, and I've been using it, shooting it with flashes strictly to kind of give it a little bit more subject isolation and a grittier kind of look, and I love it. So I don't necessarily have any results to show in the video, but hopefully soon enough I'll be able to do something with black and white and flash and put that out to you. But it's a winning combination. The grain pattern is very smooth, very natural. It's not overwhelming, but it definitely makes itself present. There's a great dynamic range with it. You get a lot of details in the shadows and the highlights. And Tri-X, I find, has the most push or pull to it. The most latitude with that. You can push it to 1600, 3200 people do it, and you still get usable stuff back. It's insane. No creative limits to this film. People use it to its fullest potential. They go nuts with it, and they pull out some really, truly incredible things with it. Potential with Tri-X 400, absolutely limitless. It is the king of black and white films for a reason. It has a legacy because it's the best. Now, color film. It is a toss-up between Ektar 100 and Portra 160 specifically. Let's break it down. Portra 160, obviously lowest ISO of the Portra series, comes in 400 and 800 as well. It is the smoothest, it produces skin tones the most naturally, I figure, and that's what people turn to Portra in general most for. It's a lot of professional portraiture work. It produces a very balanced color palette, a very soft color palette, and people will toss up between the Portra series and Fuji's 400H series. They're very, very similar, but Portra a few years back released a new formula, and that just elevated it that little bit more, surpassed anything that Fuji could do to match it, and it just has, like I said, a very balanced look. It's very neutral, but you get a nice amount of saturation, nothing overpowering, nothing overbearing, and there's just a very easy on the eye sort of aesthetic. You look at it and you're just like, yes, it's pleasant for my eyeballs, thank you. With Portra 400, it is a fantastic all-purpose film. You can load it into absolutely anything, use it as an everyday film. I found myself just preferring the look of the smoother grain of the 160, and so whenever I would shoot 400, I would usually do a little bit of noise reduction just to kind of calm things down a little bit. And that's why I turned to the 160. I have faster lenses like f2, f2.8, which isn't really fast by modern day standards, but whenever I need extra light, I don't find myself reaching for a higher ISO film. I'll just step my lens down, step the shutter speed down, and that's the way I'll compensate for that. And then people will also compare Portra to Ektar. What is the difference? Well, Ektar only comes in a 100 ISO formula, and as the box says, it is the world's finest grain. And god damn it, I believe it. It is amazing. It's more saturated, it's a little bit of a richer image, smooth grain, smooth as butter, and it's not as natural as the Portra, but when you think of saturated films, everyone will think of Velvia, Fujifilm. And so you get saturation, you get a more saturated look that kind of goes more towards Velvia, but it's not too punchy in your retinas. Like, I hate Velvia for the reason why everyone else loves it. It's the saturation. It's too much, it's out of this world, and for me personally, I just don't get it. But with Ektar, even if you overexpose it, which I love doing with film, you still get a great saturated image, very vibrant colors, but it's all natural. It doesn't feel weird to look at. It doesn't feel unnatural. And I love it, I absolutely do. The good thing about all the films here is that they all come in a bunch of different formats. You get them 35mm, 120, 4x5, and 8x10 slides as well. They're all color negative, so it's all very simple to process. They're all C41 process, obviously except for black and white, which is a certain process that I can't find on the box. But when you look at competitors' products, I mean, Kodak obviously has been around for the longest time, and over the years they've been able to refine their chemical recipes the most, I find. And so it's a shame to kind of pit each of these filmmakers against one another in an era where film is dying, and you know, we wish we could bring everything back and just have the full plethora and array of films to shoot through. I mean, Ilford, only black and white, and just not doing it for me. You think of Fuji, another major one, they're discontinuing things left and right. In terms of color, they're only left with Superia and Extra, which are good all-around films, but they crush dark colors, there's a lot of contrast, and there's nothing really magical about the look it creates. And in terms of Fuji's professional stuff, well, you have 400H, and it's a great film. It's a lot like Portra, which is why I love it. But there's not much else in its spectrum. They are still the king of slide films because they still have Astia, Proria, Velvia, which are, you know, dominant in color reversal slide film stuff. But as far as everyday film goes, I don't think Kodak can be beat. I think they're the kings of the industry, and you know, for good reason. One note, all the films that I've mentioned here, the Ektar, the Portra, and the Tri-X, they're all professional grade films. And if you're looking for something more budget friendly, there is Kodak Gold 200, I think, and a 400, which are fantastic all around films. They're very, very inexpensive when you compare it to stuff like Portra, which is like $7 a roll, and Ektar, which is like, I think $8 at my local film store. Probably getting ripped off a bit. But, I mean, you can't go wrong with it. Kodak, thank you for doing what you do. And that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, but before I go, I passed 100 subscribers, and so I figured I would celebrate with confetti. Now my blinds are full of confetti. That's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. Bye, film, not megapixels. I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.